welcome back to the Mind and Money podcast. I'm Val, a financial planner.
And I'm Sherry, a financial coach. And today the topic is wants versus needs. And I've been seeing some posts online recently about this, specifically in groups of ADHD folks. And the most recent one was around something that somebody was hyper focusing on. And the question was, how do you determine a want versus a need? Because this thing that I'm hyper focusing on, buying everything to help me learn this or do this, really feels like a need because it's super urgent and it's filling my cup up so much. Of course, it's a need. And this really helped me kind of step back and think, oh, yeah, there's differences in how we as ADHD individuals interpret things because of where we put urgency. And then it got me thinking more about, I think want versus need is too black and white. And I think there's a big swatch of decisions around spending that is more in the gray area. And we can justify something as a need, and food is one way. One of the biggest things that we can focus on, like food, need, obviously.
Right.
But do you need to order delivery, skip the dishes, Uber Eats? Do we need to go to the bougie grocery store, or can we go to a less fancy one? Or do we need to order grocery for delivery, or can we go and get it? Like there's a lot of wiggle room there that, if you're having a really low executive function day, maybe ordering food for delivery is a need because we do have to eat. And if you don't have the ability to prepare food or go get food, so it's very gray. And we were brainstorming this before we started recording, and I love the perspective that you had, Val. And it was around not necessarily want versus need, but there was three kind of things that you put out there.
Creating a bit of a third category for that gray area. So there's the essentials, and then there's the helpful, and then there's extra. So even when I'm doing my online grocery ordering, because I online grocery order because it saves me from seeing other things. But there's times where I'm like, oh, I want to get this for like a treat, right? But that's not an essential. That's helpful because that's like helping me right now. It feels good to have, but it's not, or maybe that would even be an extra. But we're talking about anyways, kind of creating three categories, right? So the essentials, the helpful, and then the extra, to bring into our thought processes a different way of looking at something, instead of just being like, oh, it has to be one or the other, it has to be a want, or I can justify it out of the wants into the need category. Is there maybe a third place that it can sit, and can we pause on that? Especially when it's hyperfixation, it's so hard to be like, or if you've just seen someone that has something, you're like, but I really want that.
Yeah. And I think our creative brains can justify anything into the need column if we try hard enough. We're like, yes, but this is going to help my mental health. This is going to help me be the most organized person ever. This thing I'm spending is going to actually help me make changes with my money. Like we can figure out how to put it in the need column, but
yes, spin it so well. And I'm sure we can both look back at a handful of purchases and be like, I, at that time, thought it was so important to have that, and I needed that, and now it collects dust, or it's something I'm going to donate. Like at the time, though, it was hot.
So let's really pivot that from want to need to those three categories. And when you think about the essential category, for me, it's what do I need to keep myself safe, alive, and well, right? So your rent, if you have a car payment, you need a car to get back forth and to work, your insurance, groceries to some extent,
that basic level, right? Like the core.
Yeah. So what are the things that you could never, ever cut from your monthly budget? What is essential? And what too, like there's some wiggle room here too. Like maybe right now you're paying $2,500 in rent, but you could go down to $1,500 in rent or add a roommate. So there is some wiggle room in some of those essentials too. But if you're sitting down and building a plan, think about what's the most urgent, what has the most dire consequence if I don't spend this money. So if you don't pay your rent, you could get kicked out eventually if you continue to not pay your rent. If you don't pay a hydro bill, your lights could get shut off. If you don't buy groceries and you have no food, well, you need food to live. So, like, those are really the basic essential things that fall into this category of need, but like essential need.
Right. So that's that essential one. Then if we move to the next level, which is helpful. So if we're looking at this situation where we're looking at kind of building on top of that, okay, so we have our groceries and our utilities and rent or mortgage taken care of, and other bills that we might have. So then I would look at helpful as like a Netflix subscription. It's helpful because it's in the sense of it's probably giving us a little bit of joy. It might be used for our kids to help distract them when we need some time. It could also go in extra though.
It could, but I think a subscription like that, I think helpful is the right place for it. And like I said, we can twist things the way that works the best for us to get them in a category to make us feel a certain way. But I think really helpful is, yes, how does that Netflix subscription benefit me and my household, to think like, yeah, if it's distracting kids, if it's something that helps you really have time to relax and just forget about things, I think it does fall into the helpful category. But also, if you have Netflix and Disney Plus and Prime, and then we get into the extra category, because where's the limit when it comes to subscriptions? Because really, Netflix, like, one of those services is going to help you with those things we were hoping to achieve.
Yes.
And then the other ones would be more considered extra, I think. And some people might think that a gym membership is extra, and it might be extra for some people. So if I were to go get a gym membership, it would be considered extra because I have weights and things in my home that I can work out. So I'm really duplicating that if I get a gym membership. But for somebody who doesn't have that ability, they don't have the space, they don't have the equipment, and they're going regularly, and it's really helping their mental health and their physical health and all of those things, and maybe they're going with a friend and getting connection, then a gym membership, I think, would fall into the helpful. Whereas if you're not using it, it definitely falls into the extra category. Get rid of that shit.
I would say this exercise would be good to do with someone, like to have someone else to kind of bounce ideas off of. Because and for that someone, to your point, the gym membership might be for friend A in extra, but then for friend B, it might be in helpful. So don't think that it has to fit someone else's mold. Everyone's is going to be a little bit different.
Yep. And I think taking time to evaluate the different decisions around different spending, I think there's kind of two situations where you can encourage yourself to pause and think about, where does this fall? And the first thing I would encourage you to do is to look through the plan that you have for your money. If you don't have a plan for your money, I encourage you to start making one, and just really, when you're writing the numbers down, think about, where does it fall? And maybe you highlight them in different colors or use something different to categorize them as extra, essential, or helpful, because then that allows you to make decisions when maybe you have a lower paycheck month or a lower income month. And then you can figure out, like, I'm going to pause my Netflix subscription or my gym membership or whatever that is to help bring you so that you're not adding debt. But the more important time to think about where different spending things lie is when you're about to hit buy or order or add to cart. And I know this can be hard because we do things for the dopamine, and we do things because we're really hyperfixated on a specific category of something. And it can be hard to pause, but just take 60 seconds and think about essential, helpful, or extra. And then if it falls into that helpful or extra, if you're in a particularly challenging financial time, maybe that's enough to pause and be like, oh, I need to focus on the essentials this month or at this period in my life, because that's where you are. And then next month or the month after, maybe your situation changes and you can add some of those helpful and essential things back in.
It's like so many times where, like, adding it to the cart, like you said, but even sleeping on it, like, give it some space. Like, yeah, take those 60 seconds. And if it really feels burning, that like the hyperfixation, like this is going to be the next best thing for your beekeeping, sleep on it. See how that comes through.
Is this something
No,
you're
I'm not.
hyperfixating on, Val?
No.
I'm gonna pay attention to this. And I think, and I know sometimes we come up with random product ideas when we're recording these. I would love to see, dear financial tech companies out there that are listening, I would love to see a credit card that has ways worked into it that it forces you to pause. And something I was thinking about today is I hate how Amazon charges you. Anywhere else you go on, you buy a pair of shoes and you're charged immediately for it. And then they ship it whenever they ship it. But Amazon, you go and order 5 things. If it's coming from 5 different suppliers, they charge your card 5 different times at the time of shipping. And it's a shit show anyways. But a card that has some forced pauses in it. So it's like, oh, I saw you went and ordered this online. 4 hours later, would you like to process this order or would you like to cancel it? And I have no idea how this works. Or even like one that there's a friend or a partner keeping you accountable where I order something and you're my credit card buddy and you get a text and be like, Sherry just ordered yesterday. Have you ever seen those little like metallic ball things? They're from Specs.
What do you do
and
with them?
They're these fidget things.
Yes.
I may have ordered some yesterday.
Yes, you did.
And I'll let you know how they go. I won't tell you how much they cost because by the time you get the conversion and the shipping in there, but I've been looking at them for a long time. There was a pause. There was a long pause, and they had a promo.
So
where
would you categorize that in your 3? Would you put that as helpful
it's a total
or extra? Okay.
It's all kinds of extra.
Okay.
But
I was just checking.
Here's my logic is when I do stuff like this podcast recording, or if I'm on a guest podcast, or this week I did a podcast and then there was a follow-up live Q&A and I was doing that this week. And I've never really thought that I am a fidgeter. I've always thought my ADHD was in my brain. But then I look at my fingernails and the hangnails that I've been picking at because I can't be jumping around and I try not to do a lot of the hand movements when I'm doing this. So I try and be still. And then that ends up down here picking at things.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is going to help with that ideally. So yeah, definitely extra. But back to my point, like a buddy credit card where I buy something and then you get a text message or something to be like, yeah, here's what Sherry's doing.
For it to get processed. Yes.
And
that would
then
be
it's
so
like,
good.
And then you're just like messaging me like, Sherry, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then it's like, but here's my reasoning. And then you're like, okay, I'm going with this logic. Or no, Sherry, remember, you've got this big financial goal this month. So like spending this money on this is going to derail that. And what else could you have around you that you could just play with instead of pulling at your fingernails?
Right.
Yeah. So
go borrow 2 golf balls from Jason. Yes.
And they have to have the ability to do that, right? With a credit card, especially because if a credit card company thinks that a charge is fraudulent, they will text me. I've had this happen before. And if I don't respond that, yes, it was me, then they don't process the transaction. So there'd have to be a way to do the buddy, like, hey, dear credit card buddy, Sherry's going off the rails, or we think she is. Is this an approved transaction, or do you need to talk her down from it? Yeah. And I also really I've been looking at financial apps too to try. There's so many of them and it feels overwhelming. And the biggest one that I hear about in groups for ADHDers is YNAB. Yes. And it is really wonderful, but even myself who loves all things personal finance, I couldn't wrap my head around all of the things that I needed to do to set it up and manage it. And
no, I tried it. I didn't love it.
It's so helpful because it helps us see future money. You really have to stay on top of it. And I'm looking to find one that allows me to import all of my transactions from my financial institutions. That's an essential. I'm not inputting transactions manually. And I want one that helps me see future cash flow like my spreadsheet that I use does. But I think right now I have about 12 apps on my phone waiting for me to try them out. But like seeing future cash flow can really help us with deciding, is it essential? Is it helpful?
Mhm.
If you know, right now I'm good, my bank account has this much in it, and we make decisions in the right now based on our bank account balance now. But right
Right.
now, if it's the middle of the month and my rent is coming out on the first of the month and I don't get paid again between now and then, that bank account balance today is missing a lot of
Yeah.
future
It's not a
information.
clear picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So finding a way to have a clear picture of your future finances. And I love my spreadsheet, but it just means that there's more manualness to it. And I
Mhm.
know I can download my transactions and put them in, but it's just, I want something that helps me see months and months into the future. And my spreadsheet does allow that. And I'd love to have an app version of that where it's like, we've looked at your transactions and here's a suggested budget for you, which a lot of them do,
Mhm.
but that future cash flow piece, it's missing. So
Yeah, I think in my brain I'm like, okay, I could get this now, but what if I put this aside and invested it and it turned into this? Like really weighing that out and
Yep.
being like,
Yep.
where do
And
I want my money to go?
being able to, I know this sounds impossible if you're listening and you have ADHD and you're just thinking about making some changes with your money or more actively managing it. You can pivot getting dopamine from spending to getting dopamine from saving. And I know
Yeah.
it sounds ludicrous, but it can really fuel that. I wanted to spend $20 on Amazon today, but I'm not going to. I'm going to put it in my savings account.
Mhm.
And when you partner growing that savings account with automation, it can really be an aha moment. If you use a different financial institution than your main bank, one day you just log in there and you're like, oh crap, there's this much in this account. I've been putting $25 in it every week, and it grows faster than you expect. And we got on a lot of tangents for this one, but I really
That's
think
good.
there's so many different ways where you can determine if you should spend something now, or if you should wait, or if you should just pause, and then that pause becomes I'm never going to buy this. I don't need this. This is ridiculous. Because having time and finding ways to force that pause, and like deleting your credit card from Amazon or any other
Mhm.
spending thing, can be a really good way to force that pause. Because especially now with the colder months here in Canada, getting up off the couch in the evening when you're scrolling and you see something on Amazon you want, or on Instagram that they're pushing to you, getting out from your cozy blanket is sometimes enough of a deterrent. So get creative and see if you can find other ways to force the pause to help you think about, on a higher level, want versus need, and then on a
Mhm.
more realistic level, essential, helpful, or
Extra.
extra.
I'm going to be renaming the list in my phone from want and need. I'm definitely going to be restructuring that. So I'll
Ooh,
keep you
yep.
posted if it makes a difference.
Yeah, let us know. We want to hear about it. So we are glad you've been here, and we hope this encourages you to take some time to reevaluate your spending decisions, both today and then ones that you're looking to make in the future. And we can't wait to see you next time on the Mind and Money podcast. Have a great day.